Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking the valuable time of your busy schedules to join on the fourth episode of the Stock Talk, named The Influence of EDR Completion on Banks. Just to start off, you all may be also already wondering why we picked this topic, the banks, to discuss today. So one of the main reasons why we pick banks is that as part of research, we have been getting a lot of calls and a lot of calls and SMS regarding what's happening with the banking sector now that Sri Lanka has progressed a long way on debt restructuring. And why is banks moving up these days and all that? So we have been getting a lot of questions from our investors, and that is one of the reasons we have picked banking sector today as our presentation. So just without further ado, so today we have introducing myself. My name is Ranjan Rantunga, and I'll be acting as your moderator. While we have two guests. One is Tharusha, which is part of the research team, while we have Evelyn. She's from the advisor side to help you out with any of the queries. So without further ado, let's move on to the banking sector. Tharusha, over to you.
Thank you, Ranjan. Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the fourth episode of the Stock Talk today. So, we will be taking you through the banking sector and influence of EDR completion on banks today. So, as Ranjan mentioned earlier, so I'll be taking through the presentation on the banking sector report, which we published very recently, and will give you an update on how the EDR completion would impact the sector, and followed by a Q&A session, and feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A tab below. So before starting the presentation, let me share my screen first. Hope it's visible to everyone. So these are the key things that we are covering during the presentation today. So First Capital Research have taken the banking sector into coverage last year, October. And ever since that, the sector has reported significant jump in earnings and share price. And it has performed in tandem with the ASPI, as we can see from this graph itself. So to take you through the profitability, so in last two quarters, which is the first half of the 2024, the overall profitability banking sector has seen a jump in profitability of over 50%. And out of the total banking sector, which is our banking universe, we have picked the top banks, mainly Commercial Bank, Sampath, HNB, NTB, NDB, and Ceylon, which together recorded a profit growth of 73.3% year-on-year during the first half of 2024. So this growth in profitability is mainly driven by the growth in core businesses, which means net interest income that expanded on a quarter-on-quarter basis as net interest margins recovered, as the banks have strategically adjusted the deposit rates. So as a result, we can see the spread between the interest income and the interest expenses expanded. And we can see the improvement since May 2024, where it bottomed out to 0.3% in May, and from that gradually expanding from May onwards, and gradually expand to 1.3% in August this year. So based on our forecast, we expect the spread to further improve going forward. Going forward in 2025, mainly on the Commercial Bank, HNB, Sampath, and NDB. Also, given this low interest rate environment, we may see a banking sector loan book to grow at a CAGR of 10% in 2024, and by over 10% in 2025, where we can expect the country's private sector credit to improve to 7.5% year-on-year in 2024, which is to back by expansion in the GDP, which we've already seen growing at a rapid phase during the first half of 2024. And to give you an update on the interest rates, so we expect the interest rates to stay stable in the near term as Sri Lanka continue to achieve a surplus in both primary and budget accounts, which is expected to slightly ease the requirements for the further funding to the country. So that may ease pressure on the interest rates. So, however, as GDP expands, we expect credit demand to pick up in the near term. So, as I mentioned earlier, adding a bit of pressure towards the interest rates. So moving on to the next topic, which is the impairment and NPLs. So we expect the precautionary measures that was taken by the banks during the 2022 and 2023 has paved the way to boost the profitability going forward to the banks. So impairment provisions, we can see continue to narrow down from its peak recorded in fourth quarter 2023. And during the latest quarter, which is the second quarter of 2024, impairment contracted to LCAT 24 billion. And it was a significant reduction on a year-on-year basis. However, if you look at the quarter-on-quarter basis, as we can see, the loan book is expanding. So as a result of that, loan book is expanding, a result of GDP recovery, provisions also slightly picked up on a quarter-on-quarter basis. And if you look at the stage 3 NPL ratio or non-performing loans ratio, which is also on the recovery phase across the banking universe as the economy started to recover already. Yeah. So the main two sectors that contribute largely to the NPL ratios are tourism and construction. So given the substantial contribution to the GDP of these two sectors, most of the banks have a high exposure towards these two sectors, that the companies that are exposed to these sectors. And so these two sectors had undergone severe hit during the crisis and was given debt moratorium as well. And now we can see both tourism and construction sectors are both are performing really well, and we can see the recovery. So with the recovery in tourist arrivals, so tourism sector earnings of the companies listed in the CSE showing a steady recovery, and on a year-on-year basis, it grew by 30.6%. And with the tourist arrivals, which is also, we are seeing a recovery. And within the first 9 months of this year itself, we have achieved the 2023 total tourist arrivals of 1.4 million. And also in terms of earnings, we have already surpassed the 2023 levels of USD 2 billion. So which is a very good sign that for the banks, that as hotels started to recover, that so that the pressure on NPLs would ease down. And also with the resumption of the multilateral projects, construction sector also seeing a gradual recovery. And we saw on a year-on-year basis, the construction sector earnings saw a notable growth of 14% into second quarter of 2024. And yeah, so finally, moving on to the external debt restructuring impact to banks and what is our view on it. So to give you all a brief on EDR, so in September 2024, on 19th of September, so Sri Lanka has reached an agreement to restructure its ISBs with the ad hoc group of bondholders, local consortium of Sri Lanka and the China Development Bank to regain the financial stability of the country. So the deal agreed with the local banks include exchanging of the 70% of the face value of the ISB to USD denominated bonds with a 10% haircut, and the remaining 30% of ISBs will be exchanged into LCAR denominated securities, and that accrues a floating interest rate coupon of SLFR rate plus 0.5% margin, and that does not have any haircut. So if you look at the ISBs held by the banks, so as of 30th June this year, majority of the banks, including Commercial Bank, HNB, Sampath, PABC, NTB, NDB, Ceylon, and DFCC held ISB securities to various extent. So what we believe is from this deal, from this proposed deal of EDR, for the local bank is that was the proposed deal was well above our expectation. So as the banks have already provisioned between 50 to 55% of the existing ISP's holding. So that potentially offer opportunities for the banks for the impairment reversal, or in other terms, it may bump up their existing NPLs provisions. And if in the event of the over provisions reversed, there will be a significant jump in the profitability of banks, and that can be expected going forward. And that will further discount their valuation. So banks are already trading at a discount now, but with the reversal of the impairments, this might further discount the valuations of the banks. So in addition to that, the reversal can also uplift major pressure of banks' capital adequacy, so lifting them well over the current regulated thresholds. So we believe the ISP restructure is highly beneficial to the banks, as we expected. As a result, we already seeing the share price of the banking counters gaining substantially. So yeah, so given the optimistic view on the sector, so banks are trading at a greater discount now. So if you look at the price to book value of the banking sector as a whole, which is trading at 0.5 times, and if we compare that with the market price to book value, which is at one times, so it is a significant. Banks are trading at a significant discount now. And compared to other sectors, banking sector is significantly undervalued. And we expect a further re-rating of banks upon completion of the EDR and the potential rating upgrade that we may expect in December this year. So we believe major banks, namely Commercial, HNB, Sampath, NTB, NDB, and Sinhala, across our banking FCR banking universe, are at a greater discount now. And the recovery in the core businesses, which is the expansion in the interest margin and the spreads and the impairment reversal, are to boost the profitability to a substantial level. So that in turn provides higher return on equity for the banks. So we believe this is a right time to enter the banking sector, banking counter, so that the investors can maximize their returns. So yeah, that's all with my presentation. So now I'm handing over to Ranjan to proceed with the Q&A session. Over to you, Ranjan.
Right. Thank you, Tharusha. So everyone, as you may already know, this is a trilingual presentation. And just to brief in Sinhala what Tharusha said, let me take it up. අපි අද බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨ ගැන කතා කරන්න තමයි මෙතනට පැමිණියේ and ඒකේ අපි කතා කරන්න පළමුවෙන්ම කියන්න ඕනේ අපි බැංකු සෙක්ටර් එක කවර් බැංකින් ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨ කවර් කරන්න පටන් ගත්තේ ගිය අවුරුදු ඔක්තෝබර් ඉඳලා and අපි හැම මාස 6කට සැරයක්ම අපි report එකක් දානවා බැංකින් සෙක්ටර් එකේ performance එක ගැන ඒක සම්බන්ධ කත්තමා අද අපි මේ ප්‍රස වෙබිනාර් එකත් අපි මේ ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්නේ කියනත් දැන් පටන් ගන්න කැටට තරුෂ ඉදිරිපත් කරා බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ profitability performance ගැන ඉස්සෙල්ලාම අපි දැක්කොත් එම බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ profitability ගත්තොත් first half එකට අපි first capital universe එකට හඳුන්වනවා commercial bank HNB Sampath NDB NTB සේලාන් කියන බැංකු 6 first capital universe එක හැටි හඳුන්වනවා මේ first capital universe එකේ profitability එක ගත්තොත් අපි දැක්කා 73කින් වගේ අගයකින් බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ profitability එක වැඩි වෙනවා මේ වැඩිවීමට හේතු කාරණා කිහිපයක් තියෙනවා එකක් හැටියට අපි දැක්කා interest spreads වල වර්ධනයක් interest spreads එක ගත්තොත් එහෙම අපි interest spreads එක හඳුන්වන්නේ මෙතන බැංකුවේ deposits වලට ගෙවන interest rate එකත් lend කරපු lending product එකේ interest income එකත් අතර වෙනස තමයි අපි interest spread කියලා හඳුන්වන්නේ interest spread වල වර්ධනයක් අපි දකිනවා මේ දවස්වල මේක positively බැංකු වල profitability ට බලපෑවා ගිය කාල කිහිපය තුරදී මීට අමතරව අපි දැක්කා බැංකුවේ fee and commission income එක fee and commission income එකෙත් සීඝ්‍ර වර්ධනයක් දකිනවා. මේක ඇති වූයේ digitalization සහ මේ ශ්‍රී ලංකා ආර්ථිකය normalize වෙනවත් එකේ signs උත් එක්ක තමයි අපි දැක්කේ fee and commission incomes හොඳට කරනවා. මීට අමතරව තවත් දෙයක් බලපෑවා බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ profitability ඒකට තමයි impairments අඩුවීම සම්බන්ධයෙන්. So impairments ගැන කියද්දි impairments සාමාන්‍ය කියන්නේ බැංකුවේ දීපු ණය වලින් බොල් ණය ලෙස වෙන් කරන්න කලින් කරන පියවර තමයි අපි impairment provisioning කියන්නේ. මේකේ අපි දැක්කා මේ සෑහෙන පසුබෑමක් ගිය කාර්තු කිහිපය තුලදී බැංකුවල ලාභදායකතාවයේ වර්ධනයට හේතුවක් වශයෙන්. මේක වැඩිච්ච හේතු කිහිපයක් තියෙනවා. එකක් තමයි අපි දැක්ක ගිය අවුරුද්දේ බැංකු විශාල ප්‍රමාණයක් බැංකු වලට තිබ්බා intentional sovereign bonds නැත්නම් sovereign bonds. මේක සඳහා මේකට ශ්‍රී ලංකාව ගවර්න්මන්ට් එක 2022 අප්‍රේල් මාසේ bankrupt status එක නැත්නම් default status එක announce කරනවත් එක්කම මේ බැංකු වලට තියෙන ශ්‍රී ලංකා sovereign bond exposure එක නිසා බැංකු වල ස්ථාවරතාවය නැතත් ලාභදායකතාවයට බොහොම බලපෑමක් කරන නිසා බැංකු වලට ඒ සඳහා proactively provision කරන්න වුණා හදිස්සියේ වෙන්න පුළුවන් haircut එකට. මේක නිසාත් අපි දැක්කා ගිය අවුරුද්දේ විශාල වශයෙන් බැංකු විසින් impairment provisions කරනවා. මීට අමතරව අපි organic growth එක පැත්තෙන් බලුවොත් එහෙනම් අපි දැක්කා බැංකු වල banks වල අපි දන්න හැටියට main sectors දෙකක් තියෙනවා. main sectors තුනක් තියෙනවා. loan දෙන එකක් හැටියට මේ tourism sector එකත් අනිත් side construction sector එකත් තුන්වෙනි sector හැටියට consumer sector එකත් අපි දැක්ක තියෙනවා බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ විශාල loan exposure එකක් තියෙන මේ sectors වලින් අපි දැක්කා tourism උයි construction sector කියන sectors දෙක යලි පිළිඳුමක්. ඒ කියන්නේ strong recovery එකක් දැක්කා. මේ හේතු කිහිප හේතුකරෙනත් අපි දැක්කා impairments නැත්නම් NPLs non performing loans අක්‍රීය ණය වල අක්‍රීය ණය අඩුවීමක් අපි දැක්කා ගිය කාලතු කිහිපෙතුදී. මේ හේතු කොටගෙන ඉඳන් අපි දැක්කේ profitability එක බැංකු වල වර්ධනව ගිය කාලතු කිහිපෙතුදී. මීට අමතරව තරුෂා මෙතන explain කරා ළඟදී discuss කරලා ඉවරෙච්ච external debt restructuring program එක ගැන. external debt restructuring program එක ගැන වචනක් කියනවා නම් external debt programming කියන්නේ ලංකාවේ debt restructuring process එකේ third step එක. first stage එක හැටියට අපි දැක්කා local debt optimization කියන stage එක 2023 සැප්තැම්බර් මාසයේදීත් ඊට පස්සේ bilateral debt negotiations අපි දැක්කා 2023 දෙසැම්බර් මාසයේදීත් මේ ලංකාව ගවර්න්මන්ට් එක සමග ඉවර කරනවා. ඒකට අන්තිම ස්ටේජ් එක හැටියට තිබ්බේ commercial credit නැත්නම් මේ ISB intentional sovereign bonds restructure තමයි තිබ්බේ private credit restructure තමයි තිබ්බේ third stage එක හැටියට. මේක තමයි අපි දැක්කේ දැන් මේ ලංකාව ගවර්න්මන්ට් එකයි ඊට පස්සේ bilateral private credit committee එකයි agree වෙලා deal එකක් present කරනවා. මේක තුලින් උත් බැංකුවට ලොකු වාසියක් තියෙනවා. ඒකට හේතුව තමයි අපි ගත්තොත් එහෙම බැංකු මං ඉස්සෙල්ලා කිව්වා වගේ ගිය අවුරුද්දේ ලාභදායකතාවයෙන් 55% වගේ ප්‍රොවිෂන් එකක් කරා ඉස්සරහට වෙන්න පුළුවන් intentional sovereign bond haircut වලට. දැන් හැබැයි මේ ඩීල් එකේ තියෙන විදිහට අපි ගත්තොත් එහෙම local banks වලට offer කරලා තියෙනවා ඩීල් එකක්. ඒක තමයි ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ තියෙන outstanding intentional sovereign bonds වලින් 70%ක් ඩොලර් බොන්ඩ් එකක් හැටියට කන්වර්ට් කරගන්නත් ඒකට haircut එක 10%ක් හැටියටත් ඊට පස්ව ඉතුරු 130 outstanding debt වලින් ඉතුරු 130 රුපී බොන්ඩ් එකක් හැටියට exchange කරගන්නත් decide කරලා තියෙනවා. මේක haircut එකක් කිසිවක් නොමැතිව තමයි රුපී බොන්ඩ් එක එන්නේ. දැන් මේ හේතු කාරණා කොටගෙන අපි හිතනවා අපි විශ්වාස කරාට වඩා අඩු ප්‍රමාණයක haircut එකක් පැමිණීම නිසා ලොකු impairment ප්‍රමාණයක් reverse වෙන්න හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා බැංකු සෙක්ටර් එකේ ඉදිරි ලාභදායකතාවයේ අතිවිශිෂ්ට ලෙස වර්ධනය කිරීමත් සමගම අතිවිශිෂ්ට ලෙස වර්ධනය වීමක් expect කරගෙන මේ කරුණු කීපය තුළ විශ්වාස කරගෙන අපි හිතනවා බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨය තමයි දැන්ට ස්ටොක් මාකට් එකේ තියෙන most attractive sector එක හැටියට අපි identify කරන් තියෙනවා බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨය. ඊට පස්සේ valuations පැත්තෙන් කතා කරොත් බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ valuations value trade වෙන්නේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ පොත්තගේ වගේ භාගයකට. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් මේ වගේ දෙයක් අපිට දකින්න හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ. ඒකට හේතුව හැටියට ගත්තොත් එහෙම බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපි හඳුන්වනවා proxy to the economy කියලා. ඒ කියන්නේ economy එකේ performance එකේ mirror effect එකක් තමයි සාමාන්‍යයෙන් බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයකට තියෙන්නේ. ඒ කියන්නේ economy එක හොඳට කරනවා නම් බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයත් හොඳට කරනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ economy එකේ දුර්වලතාවයක් තියෙනවා නම් බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ දුර්වලතාවයක් තියෙනවා. දැන් අපි දැක්කේ බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් valuation පැත්තෙන් ගත්තොත් price to book value තමයි ඉස්සෙල්ලාම බලන්නේ පොත්තගේ. අපි දැක්කා ගිය අවුරුද්දේ සැප්තැම්බර් මාසයේදී බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ පොත්තගේ 0.3 times විතර වැටෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ පොත්තගෙන් 3.1කට වගේ ප්‍රමාණයකට වැටෙනවා. අපි දැක්කා බැංකු වල share prices. හැබැයි අපි local debt restructuring සහ private credit restructuring කරලා ඉවරනත් එක්ක bilateral credit restructuring කරලා ඉවරනත් එක්කම අපි දැක්කා බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ re-rating එකක් වෙනවා. මේකත් එක්ක දැන් බැංකු සාමාන්‍යයෙන් 0.5 times වගේ ඒ කියන්නේ පොත්තගෙන් භාගයකට වගේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් දැන් ට්‍රේඩ් වෙනවා. මේ හැබැයි ඉදිරි මාස කිහිපෙකදී අපි ඉස්සර කතා කරගත්ත ඉදිරි මාස කිහිපෙකදී එක්ස්පෙක්ට් කරන්න පුළුවන් positives නිසා බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ අපි හිතනවා බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ ඉදිරි මාස කිහිපෙකදී re-rating එකක් වෙන්න ඕනේ කියලා. ඒක නිසා තමයි අපි විශ්වාස කරන්නේ බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් පොත්තගේ 1 times වගේ අගයකට re-rate වෙන්න ඕනේ කියලා ඉදිරි අවුරුද්ද තුලදී. දැන් මම මේ එක්ස්ප්ලেইন කරේ අපි තරුෂා banking sector presentation එකේ present කරපු දේ පොඩි සාරාංශයක් සිංහලෙන්. මේකේ ඊළඟ පියවර හැටියට අපි දැන් මේ සාරාංශය දෙමලින් කරන්න plan කරලා තියෙනවා. මේකට මම invite කරනවා එබ්ලින් එතට. එබ්ලින් ඔබතුමීට අවස්ථාව.
Thank you, Ranjan. அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம். நான் இப்பொழுது வங்கித்துறையை பற்றி நாங்கள் தற்போது பேசிக் கொண்டிருக்கிறோம். ஆகவே இந்த பிரசன்டேஷன் ஒரு சுருக்கமான விளக்கத்தை நான் உங்களுக்கு தரப்போகிறேன். ஃபர்ஸ்ட் கேபிட்டல் ரிசர்ச் ஆனது கடந்த ஆண்டு அக்டோபர் மாதம் தொடங்கி வங்கித்துறையை பற்றி பல ஆராய்ச்சி அறிக்கைகளை வெளியிட்டிருந்தது. அதன் பின்னர் நீங்கள் பார்த்தீர்களானால் பங்கு விலையில் குறிப்பிடத்தகுந்த ஒரு உயர்வு பதிவாகி, ஆகவே இந்த உயர்வுக்கான காரணங்கள் என்ன மற்றும் நாங்கள் அந்த வங்கித்துறையை பற்றி மென்மேலும் என்ன எதிர்பார்த்து கொண்டிருக்கிறோம் என்பதை பற்றி நாங்கள் இப்பொழுது கதைக்கப் போகிறோம். கடந்த அரையாண்டு காலத்தை நீங்கள் எடுத்தீர்களானால் கடந்த அரையாண்டு காலத்தில் வங்கிகளின் லாபமானது 73.3% அதிகரித்துள்ளது. இதற்கு பல காரணங்கள் உள்ளன. அதில் சில காரணங்கள் என்னவென்று சொன்னால், முதலாவதாக அவர்களின் முக்கிய வணிக வளர்ச்சியால், அதாவது நாங்கள் அவர்களுடைய கோ பிசினஸ் என்று அழைப்போம். இவர்களுடைய கோ பிசினஸாக நாங்கள் கருதுவது டிபாசிட்டுகளை, வைப்புகளை உங்களிடமிருந்து எடுத்து பிறகு கடன் தேவையானவர்களுக்கு அந்த பணத்தை அவர்களுக்கு வழங்குவது. ஆகவே இதற்கு அவர்கள் ஒரு இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட், ஒரு வட்டி விகிதத்தை அறவிடுவார்கள். ஆகவே இந்த முக்கிய வணிக வளர்ச்சியால் வங்கிகளின் டெபாசிட் விகிதங்களை அவர்கள் மாற்றி அமைத்துள்ளார்கள். மாற்றி அமைத்து மறுசீரமைத்தபடியால் இந்த வட்டி வருவாய் மற்றும் செலவுகளுக்கு இடையிலான விகிதமானது, அதாவது இந்த நெட் இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் மார்ஜின் என்று நாங்கள் அழைப்போம், இது விரிவடைந்துள்ளது. இந்த நெறி இன்னும் தொடரும் என்று நாங்கள் எதிர்பார்க்கின்றோம். ஆகவே முக்கியமாக கமர்ஷியல் வங்கி மற்றும் HNB, சம்பத், நேஷன்ஸ் ட்ரஸ்ட், NDB, செலான் போன்ற வங்கிகளுக்கு இந்த நெறி தொடரும் என்று நாங்கள் எதிர்பார்க்கின்றோம். மேலும் குறைந்த வட்டி விகிதங்கள் 2024 கடன் புத்தகத்தை, அதாவது அவர்களுடைய லோன் புக்கை 10% வளர்ச்சியை கொண்டு வரக்கூடும் என்று நாங்கள் எதிர்பார்க்கின்றோம். இதற்காக தனியார் துறையின் கடன், அதாவது நாங்கள் பிரைவேட் கிரெடிட் என்று அழைப்போம், இது 7.5% அதிகரிக்கும் என்று எதிர்பார்க்கப்படுகிறது. இது மொத்த உள்நாட்டு உற்பத்தியின், அதாவது GDPயின் வளர்ச்சியால் இயக்கப்படுகிறது. இரண்டாவது காரணம் வங்கியின் தவறான கடன்கள், அதாவது நாங்கள் NPL, நான் பெர்ஃபார்மிங் லோன்ஸ் என்று அழைப்போம். இப்போது பொருளாதாரம் மேம்படும் நிலையில் இது மீள்கின்றது. ஆகவே இழப்பீடு ஒதுக்கீடுகள், அதாவது இம்பேர்மெண்ட்ஸ் என்று நாங்கள் சொல்லுவோம், இந்த இழப்பீடு ஒதுக்கீடுகள் வங்கியின் லாபகத்தை இன்னும் அதிகரிக்கின்றன. நாங்கள் கூடிய அளவில் இழப்பீட்டு ஒதுக்கீடுகளை செய்திருந்தோம் கடந்த 2 ஆண்டுகளில் வங்கிகள் செய்திருந்தார்கள். ஆகவே இப்பொழுது அது குறையும் பட்சத்தில் வங்கிகளின் லாபம் அதிகரிக்கின்றன. NPL-க்கான முக்கிய காரணங்களாக இருந்தவைதான் சுற்றுலா துறையில் மற்றும் கட்டட துறையில் ஏற்பட்ட ஒரு சில இடையூறுகள் கடந்த 2 ஆண்டுகளாக. ஆகவே நாங்கள் இப்பொழுது சில வலுவான செயல்திறனை காண்கின்றோம் இந்த துறைகளில். ஆகவே அதிகரித்த சுற்றுலா வருகைகளுடன் சுற்றுலா வருமானம் மீளக்கூடிய நிலையில் உள்ளது. மேலும் பல்தரப்பட்ட கட்டுமான திட்டங்கள் மீண்டும் தொடங்கியதனால் இந்த கட்டுமான துறையில் 2024 ஆண்டில் 2ஆம் காலாண்டில் ஒரு 14% வருடாந்த வளர்ச்சி ஏற்பட்டு கொண்டு இருக்கின்றது. அடுத்ததாக 2024 செப்டம்பரில் இலங்கை தனது சர்வதேச அரசியல் பத்திரங்களை, அதாவது இன்டர்நேஷனல் சவரின் பாண்ட்ஸ், நாங்கள் ISBs என்று அழைப்போம், இவை மறுசீரமைக்க ஒரு ஒப்பந்தத்தை அடைந்துள்ளது. இந்த ஒப்பந்தத்தில் உள்ளூர் வங்கிகள், அதாவது லோக்கல் பேங்க்ஸ், அவர்களின் ISBஸில் 70% டாலர்களில் செலுத்தவும், அந்த டாலர்களில் செலுத்தும் அந்த 70%க்கு 10% இழப்பீடு, அதாவது ஹேர் கட் என்று நாங்கள் அழைப்போம், 10% இழப்பீடை செய்வதற்கும் அவர்கள் இணங்கியுள்ளார்கள். மேலும் மீதமுள்ள அந்த 30% அவர்கள் இலங்கை ரூபாய்களில் செலுத்தவும் இணங்கியுள்ளார்கள். ஆகவே கமர்ஷியல் வங்கி, HNB, சம்பாத் இவற்றிற்கு தான் அதிக அளவில் ISBஸ்கள் தற்போது இருக்கின்றன. ஆகவே இந்த வங்கிகள் கடந்த ஆண்டுகளில் இந்த இழப்பீடுகளுக்காக 50 தொடக்கம் 55% ப்ரொவிஷன் செய்துள்ளதால் இந்த ஒப்பந்தம் எதிர்பார்ப்புகளையும் கடந்து சென்று இழப்பீடுகளை மீளப் பெற்று லாபத்தை அதிகரிக்கின்றது. ஆகவே இதன் மூலமாக வங்கிகளின் லாபமும் உயர்கின்றது, அவர்களின் கேபிட்டல் எடிக்வசி ரேஷியோஸ் என்று நாங்கள் அழைப்போம், கேபிட்டல் எடிக்வசிக்கான தேவைகளையும் பூர்த்தி அடைய செய்கின்றது. மற்றும் வங்கியின் பங்குகள் தற்போது பங்கு சந்தையில் ஒரு குறைந்த விலைக்கு அல்லது ஒரு மலிவான விலைக்கு தான் விற்பனை செய்துபட்டு கொண்டிருக்கின்றது. அவர்களின் நாங்கள் இந்த பிரைஸ் டு புக் வேல்யூ என்கின்ற ஒரு ரேஷியோவை நாங்கள் பார்ப்போம். இந்த பிரைஸ் டு புக் வேல்யூ நீங்கள் வங்கி துறையையே எடுத்து பார்த்தீர்களானால் தற்போது அது 0.5 மடங்காக, நீங்கள் இதற்கு முதல் இருந்த ஆண்டுகளில் ஹிஸ்டரியை எடுத்து பார்த்தீர்களானால் அப்பொழுது 0.7, 8 ஆகிய உயர்ந்த அளவுகளில் தான் அவை விற்பனை ஆகி கொண்டிருந்தது. தற்போது பிரைஸ் டு புக் வேல்யூ 0.5, அதாவது 0.5 மடங்கில் தான் உள்ளது. மற்றும் சந்தையின் பிரைஸ் டு புக் வேல்யூ 1 தற்போது உள்ளது. ஆகவே முக்கிய வங்கிகளான கமர்ஷியல் மற்றும் HNB, சம்பாத், NDB, செலான் போன்றவை மிகப்பெரிய ஒரு மதிப்பு குறையில் தான் இப்பொழுது விற்பனை ஆகி கொண்டிருக்கிறது. ஆகவே ஃபர்ஸ்ட் கேபிட்டலில் நாங்கள் இந்த வங்கி துறையில் முதலீடும் செய்யுமாறு நாங்கள் பரிந்துரைக்கின்றோம். Over to you, Ranjan.
Thank you, Evelyn. So everyone, so we have finished up on the first part of the presentation. Next up, we are going to we are opening up the Q&A to everybody. So if you have any questions, please free to put it in. You can either use all English, Sinhala or Tamil, and we will try to help you out with the questions. So going on to questions, so we have already received a few questions from the audience. Let me move to the first question. I'll be directing it to Evelyn. So Evelyn, this question is to you. So the banking sector is a culmination of integrated functions closely tied to the broad economy, necessitating complex analysis and extensive research. As an investor, what insights or calculations would you recommending investors for independent analysis? And also, we have already seen the banking sector as well as the SPI moving up drastically since post-elections. Do you think how do you guide an investor how to pick a share and what to look at on this when you're looking at the banking sector investments? Can you give us a few details on this, Evelyn?
Definitely, Ranjan. Thank you for that. Let me first answer the first part of the question on how we can conduct an independent analysis into the banking sector. So when we are conducting an independent analysis, it kind of requires a thorough understanding of various financial metrics, economic indicators, and even regulatory factors. So the first important point to consider is the economic indicators, such as where does the interest rate stands at. So the interest rate trends, where we need to understand the current interest rate environment as well as the projected interest rate environment, as this directly affects the bank's profitability, as it can have an impact on the net interest income of the banks. Now, we saw the IMF and the official creditor committee have given a green signal to proceed with the debt restructuring. We got this news like few days back. So hence, this reduces the risk associated and can also bring the interest rates further down. And if the current government can also secure majority in the parliamentary elections, that is another positive sign, I would say. So when the interest rates fall, we can see a notable increase in terms of the loan book, where we can see a loan growth in the banks. The next item is we should also consider the GDP growth rate of the country. So higher growth rates mainly correlate with increased lending and improved bank performance. So the current loan books of the banks continues to improve due to low interest rates support, and it can also backed by the expansion in the GDP. So the next macro factor, I would say, to consider is to look into the regulatory environment. So we need to always stay informed about changes in banking regulations and how they could impact the capital requirements and the risk management practices of the banks. We can also consider the market position of the banks along with their competitors, I would say. So we need to analyze the bank's market share and the competitive positioning on how each bank differentiates themselves from the others. And if you are carrying an independent analysis into each bank, you can consider looking into following aspects like their capital adequacy ratio. So when you go through a company's quarterly performance or even their annual reports, there is a detailed information on selected performance indicators. So this basically carries information such as where does their tier 1 capital stand and where does their total capital ratio stands at. So it also indicates what is the regulator's requirement and what is the current ratio of the bank. So a higher capital adequacy ratio indicates a stronger capital position, which also means that the bank is better equipped to absorb the losses. So this also enhances the stability and reduces the risk of insolvency for the banks. You can look into the asset quality of the bank, of how much of non-performing loans does the bank carry. And if high NPLs, if there are higher NPLs, it can lead to reduced profitability because the banks need to provision for the loan losses. So this can restrict a bank's ability to lend and grow. Hence, analyzing the NPLs helps the investors to understand how these loans impact the overall performance of the banks. So the performance indicators in the financial statements also carries the asset quality, where they do a comparison on a year-over-year basis, where does the asset quality stands at, and this can give us an idea whether it has increased or whether it has decreased. And some of the other ratios that you can look into are like the net interest margin. So that basically reflects a bank's ability to manage its interest income when you compare it with their interest expenses. Next, you can also look into the return on equity. So these are all available in their financial statements. So you can also check what their return on equity is, what are the return on asset is, and you can also check their loan to deposit ratio, where you can compare how much of deposits they have and how much they have lent out so far out of the total deposits. And when there is an excess amount in terms of the deposits, that also interprets that the bank has the capacity to lend more. So these are some of the things you can consider when you are carrying out an independent analysis on the banking sector. However, I would also say that it is equally important to regularly follow financial news reports as well as analysis related to the banking sector in order to stay informed and make timely decisions. I hope I answered the question, Ranjan.
Yes, Evelyn. Can you also explain about how the banking sector is valued amidst the market is been climbing recently?
Yes,
Do you
the
think
second
it's
part of the
time
question. Yes.
Yes. Do you think it's a
I
good
should
time
be
to
able to.
assess the banking sector, and how can you assess a bank whether on its valuation?
Sure. So, firstly, while the recent market uptrend indicates a positive momentum, it is also essential to analyze the underlying the fundamentals of the bank stocks. Let's say that if the banks are reporting strong earnings and whether they have healthy balance sheets and whether the economic outlook is currently favorable, then it may suggest that there's still potential for growth despite the recent gains. So currently, if you just have a look at the positives as well as the negatives, at the moment, it's very highly unlikely that we could see any negatives related to the economy or even the current political position of the country. So then we need to consider the broader economic environment, which plays a crucial role in the performance of bank stocks. So you can look into the key indicators like the GDP growth, the inflation rate. We saw that in September, we are going through a deflation. And where does the interest rate stands at? For instance, let's say that if the GDP continues to grow, it also suggests that increased lending and borrowing activity is possible. And also, if you look into the valuation matrix, where you have to see where the price to book value of the banks are standing at the moment. Currently, it's at around 0.5 times. And historically, if you take the market price to book value, it is at 1 time. And we can compare and see historically where the stocks have traded in the past and where does it stands now. So based on these, we can make a decision whether it is a good time to get in or not. So currently, we feel that the banks are still trading at a discount when you compare with its asset value, the net asset value. And it is also important to understand the investor sentiment. So currently, I feel that the investor sentiment seems to be quite positive. And we also need to see whether there are institutional investors, whether they are still bullish on the banking stocks or even any other, or overall, if you take the market, whether they are bullish on the market, or is there any shift in terms of the sentiment. And also high levels of retail investor participation, which is currently happening in our market, is also a sign that there is more confidence in the market. And investors should also, I would say, consider the investment strategy and the risk tolerance. So for example, let's say that you are a long-term investor. If you are a long-term investor, I would say this is such an opportune time for you to enter into the market, especially if you believe in the continuous growth of the banking sector. So if you go through our banking sector report, we have come up with our fair values and we have indicated why we expect such a growth. So these are quite, the long-term investors can make use of this and they can enter into the market even at this point. Conversely, for the short-term traders, I would say that it will be wiser if we can evaluate the potential corrections in the market. So not only the index, even individual stocks go through correction during the day. So if there are market volatility, if there is a volatility in terms of the stock price, I think that is the time where even the short-term traders can make use of and get into the share. So just to summarize on this, I would say the recent rise in the index and especially in the bank stocks is encouraging. And we need to conduct a thorough analysis in terms of the market conditions and the fundamentals, and also look into the economic indicators. And if you're a long-term investor, you can go ahead and make the investment as we see more potential growth in terms of the banking sector. And if you're a short-term trader or a short-term investor, you can always look for corrections. And based on the market or the stock price volatility, you can make a decision and get into the share. Over to you, Ranjan.
Thank you, Evelyn, for that explanation. Let me add a bit to that from the perspective of research. Yeah. So in terms of first capital research, you may already know that we give targets for the SPI performance as well. And if you have been following us, we have a target of 13,500 level for this year, this year, that is for this December. And we have a target of another 15,000 for the end of next year as well. And so if you, just to give a background, we have, when we are giving targets, what we mostly consider is, we consider the dynamics in the market along market. For example, we look at where the market is trading on terms of PE and how's the market earnings is look like, and what do we forecast for the market earnings for the coming years. So we take all these aspects in consideration, and we have arrived based on the target price of the SPI as well. So just on top of that, let me explain a bit what Evelyn explained before. So with regards to the then Evelyn ඉස්සර කිව්වාගේ market එකේ අපි දැක්කා අපි ශීඝ්‍ර වර්ධනයක් ජනාධිපති ජනාධිපති ඡන්දයෙන් පස්සේ අපි දැක්කා මාකට් එකේ ශීඝ්‍ර වර්ධනයක්. මේකට මූලිකම හේතුව ලෙස හඳුනා ගන්න ඕනේ ලංකාවේ තිබ්බ සිටුේෂන් එකයි. ඒ කියන්නේ 2022 අප්‍රේල් මාසයේ, ඒ කියන්නේ හිටපු ජනාධිපති ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ මහත්තයා තන්තුරෙන් ඉවත් වුණාට පස්සේ රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ ජනාධිපතිතුමා පැමිණීමත් ඊට අමතරව තිබ්බ political uncertainty. ඒ කියන්නේ මිනිසුන්ගේ මතයකින් තොරව පැමිණි ජනාධිපතියෙක් හැටියට ඔහුගේ ජනාධිපති ධූරත්වයේ ස්ථාවරත්වය සමග තිබ්බ ප්‍රශ්නත් සමගව ඒවත් එක තිබ්බ political uncertainty වතා මාකට් එක අපි දැක්කේ ඡන්දෙට කලින් වැටෙනවා. ඒකත් එක්කම අපි දැක්කා 2021 2024 සැප්තැම්බර් 21 වෙනිදාන් පස්සේ මාකට් එකේ ඊටාම ශීඝ්‍ර ඉහළ යාමක්. මේකට හේතුව තමයි අපි මාකට් එකේ දැන් මෙච්චර කල් අවුරුදු දෙකක් තිස්සේ නොතිබුණු political clarity. ඒ කියන්නේ ඉදිරි අවුරුදු 5 තුලදී ලංකාවේ සිදුවීමට නියමිත ඩිරෙක්ෂන් එක සමග අපි දැක්ක පළවෙනි පාර තමයි මේ පාර අවුරුදු දෙකකට පස්සේ මේකේ පිළිඹිම තමයි අපි දැක්කේ ස්ටොක් මාකට් එකේ ශීඝ්‍ර වර්ධනය සමගම. ඒත් එක්කම ඔයගලන්ට තේරෙන්න ඕනේ මේ ශීඝ්‍ර වර්ධනය සමගම බැංකු ඉසාල ලෙස ප්‍රයිසස් වල වර්ධනයක් දැක්කා. මේ හේතු ගැන හිතගෙන ඔයගලන් හිතනවා ඇති ඔයගලන්ට ඔළුවේ මේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙන සමහරට දැන් මේ ශීඝ්‍ර වර්ධනය සමග බැංකු තාම ගන්න හොඳයිද? මේ අපේ රිසර්ච් එකේ අපේ විශ්වාසය තමයි අපි හිතන්නේ ඊළඟ අවුරුදු කිහිපය තුලදී මම ඉස්සර දුන්න ටාගට්ස් කිහිපය තුලදීම බැංකු තමයි මේක ඩ්‍රයිව් කරන ෆෝස් එක වෙන්නේ කියලා මේ ASP ටාගට් එක. ඒකට හේතු වශයෙන් අපි ඉස්සෙල්ලා ප්‍රසන්ටේෂන් එක තුලදී ඉදිරිපත් කරා වගේ කරුණු කිහිපයක් හේතු වෙනවා බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ වර්ධනය සඳහා. ඒත් එක්කම එව්ලින් තවද කිව්වා බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ වර්ධනය ඔබ ඉන්ඩිවිජුවල් ඉන්වෙස්ටර් කෙනෙක් හැටියට කොහොමද මෙෂර් කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා හැටියට. මේ ඒකට කරුණු කිහිපයක් ලෙස එව්ලින් කියලා දුන්නා. මේ බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ හැම බැංකුවක් විසින්ම ස්ටොක් මාකට් එකේ quarterly statement එකක් දානවා. ඒකේ quarterly statement එකේ අවසාන භාගයට ගියොත් එහෙම ඔබට දකින්න පුළුවන් key indicators කියලා page එක. මේකේ උඩම තියෙනවා බැංකු වල capitalization ratios. ඒ කියන්නේ bank capitalization, capital adequacy ratios, tier 1, tier 2 capital කියලා. මේ දෙකෙන් තමයි සාමාන්‍යයෙන් බැංකුවක ස්ථාවරතාවය පින්බිඹු වෙන්නේ. මේකට central bank Basel 3 නියාමනයෙන් උත් කියලා තියෙනවා කොච්චර ගාණක් regulatory හැටියට තියාගන්න ඕනද. ඔබට මේක කම්පෙයාර් කරන්න පුළුවන් regulatory එකත් එක්ක කොහොමද බැංකුවේ ස්ථාවරතාවය තියෙන්නේ කියලා. අනෙක් පස්සකින් තව තියෙනවා ඒ key indicators page එකේම net interest margin එක බැංකුවේ කොහොමද කියලා. තවද NPL ඒ කියන්නේ අක්‍රීය ණය කොච්චර ප්‍රමාණයක් as a percentage of loan book කොච්චර ප්‍රමාණයක් තියෙනවද. ඊට පස්සේ බැංක් එකේ return on equity වගේ කරුණු කිහිපයකුත් තියෙනවා. මෙතන performance එක measure කරන්න බැංකු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයේ. මම හිතනවා මගේ question එකට සාර්ථක පිළිතුරු දුන්නා කියලා. ඊළඟට තව question එකක් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා audience එකෙන්. ඒක මම තරුෂට ඉදිරිපත් කරන්නම්. Tharusha, for the question is, the current government inherited a fragile economy which require deep-rooted structural issues requiring significant reforms. Given that the banking sector often considered as a proxy to Sri Lankan GDP and tied to the broader economy, it is evident that the effective operation of key banking functions is essential for driving profitability. From an investment perspective, what are the growth perspective of banks for long term? And how do you identify EDR implementation of EDR, and what benefits would this offer to both countries and individual banks towards the long-term growth prospect as well as re-rating? Can you give a bit of insights on this, Tharusha?
Yeah, sure, Ranjan. Thank you for the question. So to answer the first part of the question, which is what are the growth prospects of the banks in the long term? So in the presentation, we have covered how the net interest margin and impairment reversal to boost the profitability of the banks in 2024. So going forward, let's say in 2025, we expect the margin to expand further. So if you look at the net interest margin or NIMs, which contracted during the second quarter of 2024, which bottomed out in May as loans repriced faster than deposits. So we had significant reduction in spreads and margins. And after that, spread between the deposit rate and the lending rate started to gradually expand as banks started to reprice deposits gradually. So mainly FDs, which are at 1 year base, are now repricing. As a result, now we are seeing margins are gradually seeing a rise, and in August, it further expanded to 1.3% from 0.3% in May this year. So this benefits banks to expand their top line, which is net interest income going forward. And on top of that, the loan expansion. So we expect 10% loan expansion of banks for the loan book portfolio. So this also would benefit the banks to expand their net interest income. So the second part of your question, which is the overview on the implementation of the EDR. So to give you an overview of the timeline of the EDR, so the Sri Lankan government has finally announced the completion of official creditor committee and IMF consultation process on 4th October last week, and they confirms their intention to advance the implementation of the ISB's restructuring transaction, which terms were reached with the foreign and domestic holders of sovereign bonds announced on 19 September. So following the approval from the IMF and the OCC on the revised joint working framework, so the government appoints Citi as the dealer manager for the proposed sovereign bond exchange. So we can say the EDR implementation has already started, and the IMF officials had said it would take around 8 weeks to complete the process. So by end of November to December, we may expect the completion of the EDR process, and soon after that, in December, we may expect the country's foreign currency rating to be upgraded from the current status of default rating. So where last year, September, post completion of the domestic debt restructuring, Sri Lanka's local currency revised ratings were upgraded. So similar to that, we may see a rating upgrade on foreign currency post EDR. So this is basically the timeline of the EDR that we expected. In regards to the second part of the question, how it benefits the banks. So following the external debt restructuring, so banks can attract funds from the foreign borrowers like International Foreign Financial Corporations or IFC. So following the rating downgrade and the financial crisis of the country, foreign institution halted the lending to banks. So the expected rating upgrade that we are expecting in December would resume the lending that may benefit the banks to borrow at a lower cost from the international financial corporations. So that, on the other hand, improves capital adequacy of the banks as well. So they can improve their, they can maintain their capital adequacy level well above the government regulated threshold. So yeah, over to you, Ranjan.
Right. Thank you, Tharusha. Let me just add a couple of things to that. So as Tharusha correctly mentioned, so we got a timeline for the EDR and completion of debt restructuring as well. And as we just heard from Tharusha, both OCC, that's the Official Credit Committee, as well as the IMF gave the okay for the Sri Lankan government in terms of debt compatibility agreement, which was drawn on the EDR, and they have both approved it. And now the government has also taken a further step, and with the appointment of the official dealer for the deal, that is the Citibank. And the next stage involved is that the drawing of the MOUs. So As again Tharusha highlighted, it will take about 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks for to be MOUs to be drawn and to be signed. Upon that, we will see the bond exchange happen, and post bond exchange, we will the credit rating hike that Tharusha also spoke is also highly likely, where our current rating, which is currently at restricted default, can possibly lifted into the CCC category. And apart from the benefit of low cost funding that Tharusha explained, there's another benefit that is coming from the credit rating upgrade. That is mostly the increased volumes that we can possibly see on the stock market side. So that is another benefit, that is an indirect benefit that can come to with the credit rating upgrade. So as Tharusha clearly explained before, with the restricted default status, foreigners don't look at investing in the stock market or in other asset classes in Sri Lanka. And with a possible rating upgrade into CCC categories, then Sri Lanka will become investable for foreigners again. And one of the key sectors that they will look to invest in terms of stock market is going to be the banking sector. So we believe that with the rating upgrade, increased volumes and increased monies can be flown into the banking sector, which can also help towards the re-rating of the sector that we are talking about here. So that is another additional benefit that we can expect from the bank completion of EDR on the banking sector. Okay. With that, let me move on to the next question. So this question is again to Tharusha, and it is talking about the question ask where an investor can find the breakdown of the loan book portfolio, and also talks about the impairments. Where as First Capital can see the impairment reversals come into books. Tharusha, would you like shedding some light on this question?
Yeah, Ranjan, thank you for the question. So for the first part of the question, which is the breakdown of the loans, so we are seeing a growth in loan book portfolio of the banks, majority of the banks, as we are seeing like there's a significant reduction in the interest rates. So following the reduction of the interest rates, we are seeing there's a significant jump in term loans, so which contributes 60% of the total loan book portfolio of the bank. So term loans are seeing a significant jump. Apart from that, we are seeing a improvement in the import loan, overdraft, and with the revival of the construction sector, we are seeing a improvement in the housing loans as well. So these are the loan segments that we've seen they witnessed a significant growth during the couple of recent quarters. So for the second part of the question, which is recognition of the impairment reversals. So we've already seen an impairment reversal in some of the banks. So if we look at the latest quarter, which is the second part of 2024, if we take HNB as an example, so their impairment has came down. They still recorded impairment charges, but it has significantly came down by 95%. And it has mainly because of the impairment reversals, and there was a significant reduction in impairments from the NPLs, mainly revival of the tourism. So they exposed to a lot of SMEs. HNB exposed to a lot of SME segments. So as the GDP recovers, SME sectors are also recovering in tandem with the GDP. So their provisions also significantly came down. So that benefited the HNB's profitability. So in terms of impairment, so it came down by 95%, and that directly impacted the profitability. So which saw a jump from LCAT 2 billion to 8.8 billion during the quarter. So so that as an example, so we are already seeing a reversal in ISPs from a couple of banks, including Sampath Bank as well. So going forward, we may see a significant jump of significant reduction from the impairments, and it may be around so from the deal of ISBs, it was way better than what we expected. So we may see a significant 50% reduction from the impairment going forward. We may expect. Anything to add on, Ranjan?
Yes, thank you, Tharusha. Just let me quickly add on to that. So as Tharusha clearly explained, we have the reduction in impairments that are coming from the organic part of the business to the loan book side. From the other side, we have the EDR with the possible reversals to come in as well. So for the timeline, we again reread the timeline of 6 to 8 weeks for the MOs to be drawn and bonds to be exchanged. And so upon the exchange of bonds, only we can see what is the impact going to be, because apart from the haircut, there is also a day one loss component for the new bonds that are being exchanged. And just to get an idea on what's happening on the day one loss side, I think we may have to wait until the not just us, even the banks may have to wait until the deal is confirmed to see how the reversals are going to come in. But we believe that there can be significant reversals which can come into the books towards the fourth quarter, or the fourth quarter towards the end, or the first quarter of next year, as we finalize the debt deal. So that is the possible timeline that we have for the debt reversal as well. On the apart from this, so I just forgot to mention. So in terms of impairment reversals, in terms of over provisions reversals, there's another way. One, as we discussed, one is coming straight to the books through a reversal from the impairments. On the other side, what we saw was that during the local debt restructuring talks, again, the banks did a similar provisioning for the Sri Lankan development bonds as well. But however, given that there was no haircut applicable for the Sri Lanka development bonds, we saw the banks moving their existing provisions, which was done to local currency borrowings. They moved it to push up the external debt provisions as well. Now that what we can expect is, in a very conservative move, what we can expect is that banks moving their over provisions to bump up the future NPL provisions, that is the non-performing loan provisions of the banks, which can reduce non-performing loans substantially. Also affecting with future positive profitability for banks. So this can also come in like that. But however, our stance at First Capital Research, we believe that given that the reversal in provision is quite significant, and in an event like that, the banks would look to bring it into the books through a reversal on impairments, rather than using it to buffer up the existing NPL provisions. So that is our standing on the banks. Okay, so let me quickly move to the next question. So Tharusha, there is also another question from the audience on other sectors that we recommend except for banks. Do you want to shed a little bit of light on that?
Yeah, Ranshan. So apart from banking sector, we encourage investors to have a look at the consumer sector, mainly CCS. So that's a part of the consumer sector, because regardless of the economic performance, consumer sector, they tend to perform so they adjust to inflation. So they always have a better performance regardless of the economy. So it's always to go for a safe side. So if the investors looking for a safe side, consumer sector is the best next to the banking sector. And apart from that, we are looking into tourism sector. So as we are seeing a significant recovery in tourist arrivals and earnings, so we already achieved the 2023 levels within the first 9 months of this year. So for the end of this year, we expect 2.1 million arrivals. And next year, we expect the arrivals to surpass the pre-pandemic levels of 2.5 million. So that would largely benefit the tourist hotel counters. And also with the opening of the cinema life in this month, and with the opening of the casino next year, we may see like a significant jump in tourist arrivals just for the casino purposes. So that would boost the profitability and occupancies of the city hotels. Yeah. Over to you, Ranjan, if you want to add on anything to that.
Thank you, Tharusha. Let me quickly explain it in Sinhala as well. දැන් Tharusha කියපේටට අපි බැංකු තමා අපේ mainly recommendations වල topම recommendations sector වෙන්නේ. මීට අමතරව අපි හිතනවා tourism sector එකත් බොහොම හොඳට profit ලාභදායකතාව වර්ධනය කරන profit sector එකක් වෙයි කියලා ඉදිරි මාස කිහිපය තුලදී. ඒකට හේතුව තමා අපි දකිනවා මේ වෙනකොටත් tourist arrivals ලා ලංකාවට සෑහෙන numbers වලින් එනවා. Already අපි compare කරොත් එහෙම already ලංකාව 2022 23 වර්ෂවල tourist arrivals වඩා මේ පාර කරලා තියෙනවා. And ඊට අමතරව අපි අපේ හොඳම අපේ ලංකාවේ tourism වල හොඳම අවුරුද්ද වෙන 2018 මේකේ register වුණේ 2.2 million arrivals. හැබැයි දැන් බලන විදිහට ලංකාවට 2.1 million වගේ arrivals target එකක් කරන්න පුළුවන් මේ අවුරුද්ද වගේ වෙද්දී. මේ එක්කම අපි හිතනවා tourism sector එක ඉදිරි මාස කිහිපෙදී හොඳටම කරන sector එකක් හැටියට කරයි කියලා. මීට අමතරව ඊට පස්සේ අපි sector set එක ගත්තොත් එහෙම ඊට පස්සේ අපි expect කරනවා leasing companies ටික. leasing companies ඒ කියන්නේ diversified financial sector එකත් හොඳට කරන්න. මීට අමතරව අපි දැක්කා මේ දැන් තියෙන economy එකේ වර්ධනයත් සමගම material sector එක, ඒ කියන්නේ manufacturing sector එකත් ඉදිරි මාස කිහිපෙදී හොඳට කරන්න. මීට අමතරව consumer sector එක අපි දකින already consumer sector එක හැටියට ගත්තොත් මේක ඊටාම විශිෂ්ට ඊටාම පොඩ්ඩක් වෙනස් sector එකක්. ඒකට හේතුව තමයි දැන් අපි pre covid එක, ඒ කියන්නේ 2018 වර්ෂයේ performance එක compare කරද්දී දැන් comparison එක කළා බැලුවොත් අපිට පේන එකම sector එක pre covid performance එක පහු කරලා තියෙන set එක තමයි මේ consumer sector කියන එක. දැන් අපි බැලුවොත් එහෙම දැන්ට අපි ජෝන් කීස් පැත්තෙන් cover කරනවා. ජෝන් කීස් පැත්තෙන් බැලුවොත් එහෙම අපි දැකලා තියෙනවා ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ice cream section එකත් soft drink section එකත් beverage segment එකත් already pre pandemic volumes පහු කරලා තියෙනවා. දැන් ඒක නිසා තමයි මේ stress එක අනිත් sectors වලින් stand out sector එකකට identify වෙන්නේ. මීට අමතරව අපි කිව්වා වගේ අපි මේ අවුරුද්දේ අන්තිම වගේ වෙනකොට අපි apparel sector එකක් දිහා බලනවා. apparel sector එකත් හේතු කිහිපයක් තියෙනවා. ඒක අපි already දැක්කා හොඳ orders කිහිපයක් තියෙන apparel sector වලට. මීට අමතරව apparel sector valuations බලද්දී හරිම attractive level එකේ තියෙන්නේ. ඒක නිසා apparel sector එකත් ඊට පස්සේ export sector එකත් අපේ main sectors හැටියට identify කරගන්නවා අපේ recommendation list එකේ. ඊට පස්සේ තව ප්‍රශ්නයක් අහලා තියෙනවා tile sector ගැන. tile sector ගැන මම answer දෙන්නම්. tile sector හැටියට ගත්තොත් එහෙම අපි mainly දකින්නේ royal ceramics හැටියට තමයි ලොකුම play හැටියට. මීට අමතරව තියෙනවා ලංකා wall tiles උයි ලංකා tiles උයි. මේ දෙකම royal ceramics ගේ subsidiaries දෙයක්. අපි tile sector පැත්තෙන් answer කරොත් එහෙම royal construction sector තමයි අපි හිතන්නේ tile sector එකේ mostly important sector එක. construction sector ගැන කතා කරද්දී අපි දකිනවා stock market එකේ මේ දවස්වල access වගේ companies වලට පොඩි investors ලගේ පොඩි වැඩිපුර demand එකක්. මේකට හේතුව තමයි ඒක බලපාන්නේ ගොඩක් අයට access වලට විතරයි. ඒකට හේතුව තමයි අපි දැන් දැකලා තියෙන construction sector එකේ හැටියට access තමයි දැන්ට multilateral projects වලින් කරන projects පටන් ගන්න. ඒ කියන්නේ multilateral projects කියන්නේ World Bank, ADB වගේ ආයතන වලින් කරන projects වෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ water projects, ඊට පස්සේ highway development, flyover developments වගේ projects කරන්නේ access තමයි. දැන් මේක නිසා තමයි අපි access එනවා දැක්කේ. හැබැයි මේ අපි multilateral projects හැටියට ගත්තොත් එහෙම ඔය කරන එක project එකක්වත් tile sector එකට benefit වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ හේතුව තමයි දැන් අපි road development එකේ project එක වුණත් ඊට පස්සේ මේ flyover construction එකේ හරි tile වලට යන demand එක හරිම අඩුයි. මේ හේතු කීප නිසා multilateral project වල growth එක tile sector එකට benefit වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක නිසා tile sector තාම slope ගතියක් profitability පැත්තෙන් පේන්නේ ඒක නිසා තමයි. අනිත් එක තව tile sector තව challenge එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒක තමයි මේ දැන් tile sector එකේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ මතක ඇති import ban එකක් තිබ්බා tile වලට ගොඩක් කල් වෙනකන්. දැන් import ban එක lift වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. import ban එක lift වෙනවත් එක්කම දැන් අපි ගොඩක් දකිනවා market එකේ Chinese tiles තියෙනවා. මේ Chinese tiles වල prices බැලුවොත් එහෙම අපිට පේනවා Royal Ceramics එකේ tiles වලට almost half වලට තමයි Chinese tiles යන්නේ. මේ නිසා මේක හේතු කරගෙනත් අනික් පැත්තෙන් මිනිසුන්ගේ වියදම් කළ හැකියාව, ඒ කියන්නේ disposable incomes තාම අර පරණ තත්ත්වෙම රිකා වෙලා නැති එකත් ඊට අමතරව අපි දකිනවා මේ construction raw material prices තාම තියෙන්නේ අපි comparatively ලොකු වැඩි ගණන් වල අපි උදාහරණයකට ගත්තොත් සිමෙන්ති කොට්ටයක් ගත්තොත් සිමෙන්ති කොට්ටයක් දැන් වෙළඳ පොලේ අලෙවි වන්නේ 1900ත් 2000ක් අතර වැනි ගානකට. හැබැයි අපි ප්‍රී කොවිඩ් ගාන බැලුවොත් එහෙම රුපියල් 650ක වගේ ගානකට තමයි මේක අලෙවි වුණේ. දැන් මේ නිසා අපි දැක්කා construction set එකේ cost of construction per square feet එක රුපියල් අපි කලින් තිබ්බේ රුපියල් 6500 වගේ ලෙවල් එකක්. දැන් මේක අපි දැක්කා දැන් මේක ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා 11000ක වගේ ලෙවල් එකක්. මේ construction cost එක වැඩි වීමත් අනිත් පැත්තෙන් disposable incomes වල recovery slow recovery එකත් combine කරලා අපි දකින්නේ තාම මේ private consumption එක කියන්නේ private constructions එක කියන්නේ තාම මිනිස්සු actively ගෙවල් හදනවා වගේ trend එකක් අපි තාම දකින්නේ. මේ නිසා මේකත් පෙට්ටු කරගෙන අනිත් පැත්තෙන් Chinese cheap tiles වල තියෙන ආදේශකත් එක ආදේශන ඒක competition එකත් හේතු කරගෙන අපි හිතනවා ටයිල් සෙක්ටරයට පොඩි චැලෙන්ජ් එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන් කියලා ඉදිරි මාස කිහිපයකදී. හැබැයි අපි ඉස්සෙල්ලා කිව්වා වගේ normal tile sector එකේ අපි දකින්න පුළුවන් profits ඊළඟ මාස කිහිපෙදී පොඩ්ඩක් වැඩි වෙනවා. ඒකට හේතුව තමයි finance cost එක පැටලෙ හැටියෙන්. interest rates අඩු වෙනවත් එක්කම finance cost savings එක through year performance එක හැටියට අපිට banking construction set එකේ profits වැඩි වෙනවා දකින්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි අපි මෙතන අපි construction set එක අපේ mostly recommendation එක හැටියට අපි තාම recommend කරන්නේ නැත්තේ මේ වගේ market එක grow වෙන කාලෙකදී අනිත් පැත්තෙන් economy grow වෙන කාලෙකදී අපි හැමතිස්සම කියන්නේ aggressive share එකක් තමයි target කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒ කියන්නේ aggressive share එකකට ගත්තොත් එහෙම fundamentally story එකකින් back කරන share එකකුත් අනිත් පැත්තෙන් valuations පැත්තෙන් උත් one of the cheap shares වෙන්නත් ඕනේ. ඊට අමතරව investors ලා කැමති share එකකුත් වෙන්න ඕනේ. දැන් ඒ කියන්නේ sentiment එක benefit එකක් වෙන්න. මේ කරුණු කීපෙම කොටගෙන බලද්දී අපිට පේනවා මේ tile construction නැත්නම් tile set එක තව පොඩ්ඩක් කල් යන පාඩක් පේනවා recover වෙන්න. ඒක නිසා අපි හිතනවා මේ banking අපි ඒකින්ද තමයි අපි අපේ recommendation list එකේ තාම අපි construction sector companies වලට වැඩි අවධානයක් යොමු කරලා නැත්තේ. මීට අමතරව අපිට තව question එකක් ඇවිල්ලා තිනවා audience එකෙන් මම එක ටැග් ගාලා ගන්න මේක එබ්ලින් ඔබතුමිය වෙතට what's the Sri Lankan CSC looking into next couple of years under the new governance? Would you mind answering this question, Evelyn?
Sure, will do, Rajan. Thank you. So if we look into how the market was behaving pre-elections, there was a bit of an uncertainty in the market, mainly triggered by the political uncertainty in the country. So here, the major question most of the investors had was whether the new government will go ahead with the IMF program, whether they will stay consistent with the policies. So that was the major issue most of the investors were facing. But now, from whatever that is happening at the moment, it is quite clear that the current government has agreed to go ahead with the IMF program and also to carry on the external debt restructure. And as long as they are consistent with the policies, we can expect we can actually expect stability in terms of the economy as well as from the market's point of view. Anything you want to add on to that, Ranjan?
No, I think Evelyn, you completely took it off. Thank you, Evelyn. Next up, we have a couple of questions on the interest rates. Where do we at First Capital predict interest rates to be? Tharusha, would you mind giving a small answer for this, please?
Yeah, sure, Anshan. So if we look at the interest rates, which is the AWPLR, which is currently stands at a 9 to 10%. So we expect it to remain the range of 9 to 11% by end of this year. So we are seeing the private sector credit already seeing a recovery, and banks loan book portfolio also seeing a gradual recovery. So as GDP recovers, we may see there'll be like a significant pickup in the credit side. So as the credit pickups, there will be a like slight pressure on the interest rates. So to prevent overheating the economy, so that would result in a slight increase in the interest rates. So by end of June next year, we may see this AWPLR to improve to like from a 10 to 12% by within the like from January to June 2025. Yeah, that's the interest rate forecast that we have.
Okay, thank you, Tharusha. So everyone, I think we have come towards the end of the presentation, where we have taken a lot of questions from the audience today. And I think we have managed to answer questions across from all three languages. I think that should be also very big help for you all. Given that we have come to the end of the session, we have still a few more questions to be we have got from the audience, but given the time constraints, we won't be able to answer those. But please email us these questions at First Capital Research, First Capital FC Research at firstcapital.lk, and we will, from the research side, will get in touch with you. And apart from that, we also have the channels, two channels, which is one is First Capital Trading Insights as well as First Capital Insight Invest, which will get you guys informed with all the news and all the updates that are happening from the research side, as well as what's happening on the economic side as well. So please join in for those, and keep in touch with us. And if you have any questions, please email us or send us a message, and we will get back to you all. So thank you again for joining in. Thank you, Tharusha, and thank you, Evelyn, for coming here and supporting us on this webinar. And guys, so we will have our next Stock Talk episode happening in 2 weeks' time. Hope to see you all again on that event. Thank you again for joining. Have a good day.